It was cool.
Of course, the guys we play with now, they brought a new life to that song that we didn't have before.
Right.
So that was cool.
Yeah, man.
Shout out to the band.
3,
We played with
2,
some great musicians.
1. Yeah, what's up, everybody? We are live. Thank you for everybody that's watching right now. We got a great show tonight, as usual. We're going to talk about what the craziness going on in Venezuela. We're going to talk about a lot of political things. We're going to talk about some economic things that are happening, and we're going to talk about some life things, some spiritual things, some racial things, like we usually do. You're watching the Young Lion podcast on Young Lion TV.
Young lion, everywhere I look, they're dying. Everywhere I look, they're dying. Young lion, everywhere I look, they're dying. Everywhere I look, they're dying. Young lion, won't you get up and start fighting? Everywhere I look, they're hiding.
That's right. You're watching Young Lion TV. We are here back at True Sound Studios like we do every Tuesday night, trying to bring you guys the podcast, trying to keep this going. We want to say what's up to everybody watching in the chat right now. We want you to join in the conversation like you always do. Hit us up with information. If there's anything that you want us to talk about or questions you have, hit us up and we'll talk about those things. I want to say what's up to all the people we have here tonight. Of course, first, my special guest, Mr. Build Right himself, James Garcia, the half black, half Indian with the Spanish last name.
That's my wrestling name.
And of course, we got my brother Jake Evans, hello, holding it down. One of the young lions. We got Simone Chang, as usual, another young lion, and then we got our young lioness, killing it on the production tip, Miss Rachel Rota.
So gotta roll the R.
When you hear that, yeah, you gotta roll the R, right? That's the Italian part, right? The rota. So yeah.
Jamie should start announcing us like the WWE. In this corner, one man tonight.
Yeah, but everybody that's watching, if you can, do us a favor, share this video so other people that you are friends with can see it and can join in on the conversation, because Facebook's algorithm is crazy and they like to suppress people that are having real conversations. So make sure you share this, give it a like, give it a thumbs up. And also you can go to our Patreon if you want to support the Young Lions and become a Young Lion. You can subscribe. And you can also just donate if you want to. And we're trying to get better equipment, do a lot more content for you guys. We want to get a camera. We got a hashtag Rachel Cam coming up. So if you hear a female talking, chiming in and, trying to give us little things to the female perspective on things, that's Rachel. She is going to have a camera eventually. We just got to make sure it's good enough that, she doesn't kill us for the way that it looks on her. So, so that's it. Let's get into the conversation.
You don't have to make me sound all picky. Just one camera, one light, maybe.
Well,
that's
we have a camera, but you don't want to use it. So
the camera in this Mac, in this 2012
in that
Mac.
2012 Mac.
Got you.
Yeah, we got phones.
We could use our iPhones for sure. Let's start talking about Venezuela, because it's real crazy over there right now.
Yeah.
It's insane. I don't know if anybody in the chat has been like seeing what's going on there, but it's like all over the news. There's a coup going on because people are starving. The government has been overthrown, and Maduro refuses to leave power, and it's crazy right now.
What's his name?
Maduro?
Guaido.
Yeah,
Guaido.
Yeah. Godot or something like that. Yeah.
You gotta say it in Spanish.
Yeah.
Spanish.
But Maduro is like, we were just talking about that. Maduro is, in Puerto Ricans, that's like the sweet plantains. Yeah. So it's weird that that's his name. But it's interesting because the funny thing is James comes from Trinidad. If you've watched any of the podcasts, you know that by now, which is only 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. Mm-hmm. And there's a funny history there because a lot of people from Trinidad would be like kept out of Venezuela because of, they look down on you guys a little bit.
Yeah. Economics.
Right, right.
Well, Venezuela was a powerhouse,
Right.
a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
Because of oil.
yeah.
I think the U.S. bought like 40% of our oil from Venezuela.
And people were going to Venezuela to shop, and there's a lot of freebies in Venezuela. You know,
Yeah.
back then.
Right.
So lots of Trinidadians were trying to escape and run over there.
Your dad went
But
there
the
looking for a
tables
woman,
have
right? They were like, "Get out of here, darkies!" Right? And now they're all coming. I saw like a lot
There's a lot
of
of
people,
darkies in Venezuela too.
Yeah, but they still, they're a different kind of darky.
different culture.
We're not native.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different culture. They don't speak Spanish. Well, not all of them.
Right, but they look down, especially on like someone like him, last name Garcia. If they would
They
say,
don't speak Spanish
"You're
yet?
not really Spanish."
And
you know.
Trinidad, no, a little bit. A
No,
little
you
bit.
were. I thought you meant Venezuela.
No, they don't speak Spanish in Venezuela.
I was about to learn something new. I was like, really?
They don't speak Spanish in Venezuela. Venezuela,
So
no Spanish. Wow.
That's almost as bad as thinking. Where'd your wife think?
Oh, India was in Africa.
India. Yeah, that's almost
Yeah.
as bad, dude.
Well, Juanita's not watching yet, so
No, I knew they spoke
You can
Spanish,
talk
but I
trash.
thought you was trying to school me on something new.
No.
Simone said she wants to adopt a baby you, Chang.
She always,
I guess she's talking about his picture.
yeah, the picture,
Oh, yeah. With the crazy hair and everything.
crazy hair, looking like a little lion.
Yeah. See, a lot of people don't know that picture has a lot of meaning because Simone came from a very communist place that
didn't work.
That didn't work, and his mom had to escape because that people were dying and starving, and she was a refugee from that, and that's the same thing that's
Like,
happening in
What's going
Venezuela
on
right
in
now.
Venezuela. Dude, it's like real life Game of Thrones that's going on right there.
Yeah,
Dude's trying to take over the power from the guy who took over Chavez or whatever.
yeah,
Gave the power to this guy, and in 5 years he ran this country to the ground, which it was already, because the socialists was already going down, But the leader of the House National Assembly, it's called, it's sort of like our House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm.
They boycotted their election, which just happened, I think, in January in 2018, and they were saying that it was corrupt. So
Right.
he laid down their constitution, saying that it wasn't a fair election. So that's how he announced himself as president.
Right.
So now they have two presidents.
right. But Maduro's not. He still controls the military.
Yeah, right.
Which is what's going on now.
Yeah.
Is that like the military? Like there were some videos that I saw on Twitter where like the military was fighting each other. You know what I mean? People were posting up stuff. I saw videos of like people just shooting into crowds of people. Like
Yeah. Bradley's running over
Yeah.
into crowds.
Yeah.
Militias, because Maduro.
yeah, take a look at this right here. This is one of the ones I saw on Twitter. This is like the military is firing on each other.
So, pretty much.
Yeah, is this what you guys want? Socialism?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you see like that's another thing that people tend to take what we have here, the freedom that we have here, and like the economy that we have here. Why we don't have any sound? Oh, is it plugged in? So yeah, people tend to take the freedom that we have here for granted. It's like the people complain so much about like how terrible this country is, and they have no idea what's going on in other parts of the world. Like we talk about where you came
Well,
from,
'cause they
where you
haven't
came
traveled.
from. Right,
That's the main thing.
right,
It's traveling, and then it's their idea of what is happening via the news, which is a certain spin.
mm-hmm.
And you've told me this before. The news is corporate owned, so they're gonna tell you
Whatever
narrative.
their agenda is.
Right,
I mean, when you actually travel and you see for yourself, then you'd be like, oh God,
yeah.
I have it good.
Right, exactly. Like I remember when we went where your family grew up, and literally staying with where there's no running water. You know, people are collecting rainwater. You know, people have outhouses. You know what I mean? Like they got to hunt for food. You know, we don't know that life here. You know, and people seem to think that, you know, that's just it's supposed to be that way. You know,
and in those type of countries, those type of third world type settings, you quickly realize the have and the have-nots,
right?
The elite. And
that video that Moan shared. Yeah, look at this. That's the Bradley just running people over in the streets.
Crazy.
Yeah, remember that video you posted of Bernie Sanders? Basically, he was praising communism.
Yeah.
And then they were showing the contrast of like people in Venezuela, the people that are starving, that are in the bread lines, that are like literally going through trash bags to try to find food to feed their kids and to eat for themselves because they're starving. Yeah. And Maduro is like eating steaks with his he got the lobster bib on.
What's his name? The steak dude, the salt dude.
And a salt dude, and he's like filleting it up for him, and he's living the life.
Meanwhile, I'm sorry to cut you off. 90% of his people are living under the poverty line. The average citizen lost like 24 pounds.
Yeah,
24 pounds.
Dude, they were eating dog food. They were eating dog food there because they ate all the dogs already. Like people were literally eating their pets, like because there was no food. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. That's why when people keep trying to push these like communist ideas, it's like it never ends
government.
Well. Right.
Yeah.
When you give all the power to, like we were talking about before the podcast, you came from a communist regime that like they had the same tactic where it was like Pol Pot thought he could control all of the food, all of the wealth, and distribute it properly to everyone who deserved it.
Right.
But that never works.
Never worked. People were starving.
Yeah.
My mom told us stories about how she almost got shot because she's, trying to food.
Survive. Yeah.
Sneaking up under the soldier, while he's sleeping under the hammock to get, his little bag of rice that he's got.
I mean, you got to hold people accountable. And there's no accountability. Like once you give over control or give over your power,
right?
You don't know what's going on,
right?
And if that's what you want. So you trust in this government enough to just give it over to them. That's like you're saying, "Oh, you're my God,"
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go ahead, dude. I trust in you.
Oh, this is the video. Look at this guy serving it up, baby. Look at him.
Look at his shirt.
This is in Miami, right?
Probably.
Because this guy.
Countries, people don't line up for food. The rich get the food, and the poor starve to death.
This is every day.
I think that guy's in Qatar.
Venezuela.
Yeah,
the chef.
One of those.
Okay.
So he probably went there.
But it's a clear contrast, and you see that like it was the same thing with Castro in Cuba, which is another communist government that Bernie was praising.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He was praising what Castro was doing in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know that. Like
anything that sounds good, it probably isn't good, and that's the problem. Like people say all these, they say all these. Oh, I want that. Reparations, give me that.
Right.
Like anything that seems like it's free, it's not free.
And even someone like Bernie Sanders, if you saw his actual lifestyle and you saw what he's talking about versus how he lives, you would be very surprised.
Right. Well, he did stay in a few communes throughout his life. I sent some articles about that.
No. Staying in one and being forced to live.
That's two different things. But the funny thing is, he was reportedly Bernie Sanders was asked to leave a hippie commune for shirking, which basically is like you're not contributing. Like you're just
you're here.
Yeah, you're just
you're
here.
Not really committing.
And like it says that he was
sitting around and talking about politics.
Yeah.
Instead of working.
Yeah.
We've got corn to pick, buddy.
Yeah, and this was like in the 60s or something like that. And then he ended up staying in another commune in Israel in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And, so this is a lifestyle that
was very prevalent, those small communes.
Yeah. I mean, that was a whole movement back
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
which is a whole nother topic.
And they're
that we
gonna
could get
notice if
into.
you're not working.
Right. Because a lot of people don't even know the real story behind. Like I was telling you before, and we talked about this, the whole hippie movement and how that all started in Laurel Canyon in California, and how like that was a whole military base that was set up. You know, Laurel Canyon was an ex-military base, and they started bringing in all of these. Like Jim Morrison's dad was the admiral on the boat that the Gulf of Tonkin happened. You know what I mean? That's Jim Morrison's dad.
And what is the Gulf of Tonkin? So
It's a false flag that they
people
used to
don't
get
know.
us into the Vietnam War. Like, so, and people don't know that. Like, this is a literal like declassified
Yep.
information. Like, this really happened. They faked an attack on a ship to get us to go into to enter into the Vietnam War.
So there goes another way.
Like weapons of mass destruction.
Same thing. Weapons of mass destruction.
So it's all about trying to control an outcome of a situation,
Right.
And if you
And control the mentality of people.
right,
Yeah. Because
So-
that's what but it was like controlled opposition, because one side of it is we need to go into this war, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we need him to okay this mission, this Gulf of Tonkin mission, which becomes a false flag. But then his son is one of the main people like pushing the counterculture, hippie, like drug, peace and love movement. So it's like this whole weird controlled opposition thing that's happening, and people don't like when you start really looking into Laurel Canyon and find out all the people that were involved in that, the Byrds and Crosby, Stills and Nash and Jimi
Joplin.
Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and like all these people, man, were everybody that you know from that era came through those ranks, and a lot of them are connected to military families. And it's weird, like it's just a weird coincidence that it's like how. And there's this dude that wrote this book about it. I forget the name of the book, but it's about like all of the there was a lot of killings that used to happen there, like a weird amount of like children being killed in Laurel Canyon, and a weird amount of like murders. Like kind of, Charles Manson stayed there for a while. The dudes from
Charles Manson was running it for a while.
Yeah, it's a really strange story, and it's weird how you start finding all these connections to like. There wasn't a music scene in LA before this. There wasn't a radio station in LA before this. All of this money got pumped into this LA music scene, like all simultaneously with these bands like the Byrds. Remember, we sang background with Roger McGuinn, and he told us that he was the only musician in the band. No one else was a musician.
Yeah.
Like,
so we heard it from his mouth,
right? And when you read the book that the dude wrote, he talks about that, how Roger McGuinn was actually a fiddle player, or like he was like a folk, like he wasn't even a guitar player. So they basically were like taking
like a mandolin or something.
Mandolin was what he played, yeah. But it was like a folk mandolin style bluegrass. He wasn't like a rocker, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then they put these bands together with these kids, and their first album was done with all studio musicians, but then they were the face of it, and they started this whole like psychedelic rock movement, the hippie movement, and like the drug culture, counterculture, all that stuff. And then you see that start to infiltrate the mentality of people, and then these communes and Eastern mysticism starts taking over, and it's like, why would they be pushing that and also pushing war at the same time? It's control, you know, money.
Yeah, and you look at a lot of those people who came out of that movement. They're the professors in a lot of these colleges now.
That's true.
You know, and they're pushing the same thing. It's just ramped up in a different way, you know, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So they're just continuing. I mean, Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, it's the same. Bernie Sanders was a part of that whole movement. He living in communes, straight up hippie. Now he's a senator with all of these socialist ideas, even though he's really never like passed any significant legislation during his career. You know, he really hasn't done much as a senator,
Right.
you know, which is weird. So,
But he's pushing that socialist idea.
because it sounds good. People love hearing, you know, give me
Free
something,
stuff.
give me something for
Free
free.
education.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Who's paying for it?
you're
Right.
gonna have to pay for it though.
Right.
And that's the thing.
Yeah, and they used you know,
And
Denmark and all those countries as that they're socialists. They're not fully socialist countries.
No, they're free market countries. But
Yeah.
that's why I posted that that PragerU video on the Young Lion page, because it was like the dude breaks down exactly why Denmark isn't the example of a socialist country that you think it is, you know. And he talks about how there's some good things to it, like the fact that they get free education. People, of course, like any system, you give them something for free, they take it for granted, right? So he was breaking down how like people get free education and free housing, but a lot of them never graduate,
Never leave school
because they end up staying there because they're getting free stuff. So now they're staying in school for 10, 12 years and never graduating. So the graduation rate and the people getting degrees has slowed down, but the amount of people that go to college is a lot more. Same thing with the healthcare thing. A lot of people think that, excuse me, you get free healthcare and it's all great, but they don't understand that when you get into a system like that where everyone is just given free healthcare, someone has to weed through what's the priority, who gets priority over who,
Right.
and then these wait times start building up, and that's one of the big problems with the VA. You know, because my brother, your cousin, both of them ex-military, both of them. Your cousin lost both his legs.
Yeah.
John just hurt his little shoulder. But he has problems just getting appointments for his shoulder. He's been trying to get his shoulder surgery for like 5-6 years now.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't gotten it. And getting to run around and
But Trump passed some new legislation that now you can go beyond the VA.
Right. You can go outside of the VA, and get care if you need to, which is a great thing. Like, I think, especially for the veterans, like, they need that.
Yeah.
People that are like going to war, fighting for this country, fighting in these wars that they're weapons of mass destruction and Gulf of Tonkin. You don't understand it. And we're going to talk about, because the economy is doing a lot better than they thought it would right now. The GDP is at 3.2, which they didn't think it was going to reach that. But
a great first quarter.
Yeah, it's a great first quarter, but we're going to get into like the Federal Reserve and like how all of that is, because it's funny how it seems like it's always the countries that aren't centralized as far as banking that are the countries that we end up going into war with. Like
they don't want our money on a monetary system.
Yeah, like a lot of these other countries are basically under the U.S. dollar. China, and the whole money system is set up just as like a debt system where everyone owes each other money, and as long as you're owed money, you have money, because the money really holds no monetary value.
It's the borrowing.
Yeah. It's borrowing and lending of notes.
But at least, like in America, it's somewhat public in terms of, and not the Fed, Federal Reserve is not public, but I mean, in terms of our economics with the U.S., it's public. Like a country like China is not public, so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
and they can make it look like they got money,
Yeah,
and that's kind of what the Federal Reserve does.
That's what they do. There's nobody. I mean, Alan Greenspan has said. I've seen the clips where he talks about how he doesn't answer to the Federal Reserve doesn't answer to anybody.
Right.
There's no one,
because they just print money.
Right. But I know back in 2000, it's funny because back in 2000, the countries that were listed as like refusing the centralized banking, because the World Bank is the one that funds all the centralized banks in the country, and the countries that were like on the list of people that weren't involved in that. What's this?
Trying to get this video for you.
Flowers.
Oh, flowers.com.
Hold on.
Flowers for Mother's Day.
But what I was saying is the countries that were on the list: Afghanistan, Libya, Iraq. What do we have in common with all three of those countries?
War,
North Korea, Russia. You know what I mean? Like
all
Cuba. You know what I'm saying? Like these are.
There's a reason why, though.
There is a reason why, but I'm saying it's just funny how it's just you see certain people being propped up as the bad guys.
Right,
You know
right.
what I mean? And you wonder
Which isn't
why.
necessarily true.
Go ahead, play this.
Do with it? I mean, where do you want to take the World Bank? Do you want to make it bigger? Do you want to make it smaller? What would you like your legacy to be?
I want to make it more effective. I care deeply about the mission of the World Bank and of development in general. If we think about the world, there's still a lot of poverty, extreme poverty in some cases, so that's one part of the mission. But in general, more growth for developing countries. That means higher living standards, and that comes back and benefits the United States. It benefits Europe, all of the and Japan, of course, all of the major shareholders of the World Bank. So it's engaged internationally in trying to have more growth, higher living standards, and better practices around the world.
Since the days of McNamara, as I understand it, the real focus of World Bank has been on extreme poverty. A lot of extreme poverty actually has been alleviated around the world. Should there be a shift, for example, to investing in infrastructure?
The shift should be to finding ways that work in each individual country. Part of development is that it's different even within Africa. Each of the countries develops differently, and so that means the World Bank engaged in those countries in different ways. That means heavily the private sector, which Joyce has been heavily involved in. The private sector has an ability to get money, often capital allocation, to people that can grow businesses, hire women, hire new people into the labor force. So I think it's going to be it should be a differentiated goal of the World Bank.
All right. So we didn't get to the main part, which was about China, but so David Malpass, and I know this is a little boring for people, because when you talk about economics, people are like,
Boring.
But here's the problem.
But it's important, man.
If you don't know what's going on, you're gonna get run over.
This is the problem I find with economics to begin with. No one even knows what money is.
Yeah.
And like, what is how does it have value? How do we even exchange it for things? Like, what is the system in place? No one asks those questions. But this is the main thing that people will spend their entire lives chasing and wasting their lives working for, is to build up these monetary notes that we have that constitute some type of value to us, and we don't understand how it works.
Right. So just for a little bit of perspective, Malpass, he's the president. He just became president of the World Bank. The World Bank, it basically gives loans out to developing countries, poorer countries, to help them develop. One of the big ones was China. So China is it's got the second biggest economy.
Yeah, second biggest.
Second.
Okay, so China doesn't really need it
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
And the guy before him, his name is Jim Young Kim.
Right.
American. He was nominated by Obama, and he was just ciphering money to China.
Right.
So he's just helping China. I want
Right.
to help China. I want to help build their economy. So he's just giving them loans, low interest rate.
Meanwhile, China's like got all these sweatshops and like counterfeiting all of our merchandise and buying. We were talking about how they're like buying up land and buying up, and like they're colonizing governments. They're using this money to then go into Africa and buy it all up, Jamaica, and go into the Caribbean and buy all those islands up, and they're basically just trying to become the number one world power based off of our money.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know?
A new form of colonialism.
Right.
Yeah.
And not only that, you have everything that says made in China.
Yeah.
Because they can do that, because they can do whatever they want as a communist country.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff we're getting in America, people don't pay attention to. We get it because it's cheap, and we buy it because it's cheap.
Yeah.
But we're not paying attention to the fact that it does long-term economic to this country. So now we're starting to see that.
Right. And I think that's another huge problem, is that people, the main concern is like, how much is my flat screen TV going to cost?
Right.
And it's not like, what is more important? Like, there used to be a mantra, it was like, buy American. You know what I mean? Yeah. And people started to make that into like a racist thing. But it's really not about that. It's about why fund another economy.
Yeah. Right. Because China's not the problem.
Right.
We're the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Consumerism.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
we're lending them money, you know, like the World Bank is constantly funneling money to China. But so David Malpass was just appointed by Trump to basically change that.
Right. To change that, to reel them in, you know,
Right.
to make some
And start distributing wealth to other countries that need it more.
Yeah.
More like impoverished countries.
Right.
Like Cambodia.
Yeah, Cambodia is huge. Cambodia needs help.
Yeah, we need help, guys. Help us, please.
You don't say us. You
Oh,
never
yeah,
even
I'm-
you never even set foot there. You never even set foot there, bro.
I'm American now.
Yeah, but so let's talk about how that all started. Let's give people a little bit of a schooling on like the Federal Reserve and what we know of it, because we don't know everything. You know, we have a little bit of knowledge on it because we're nerds and like to research stuff. But
I mean, well, we can go back to the beginning. Like, banks have always been an issue and a problem in the world in terms of taking advantage of countries.
Right.
And in America, it's been no different. So.
Right. Well, I think people don't understand that like one of the main principles and one of the main reasons why we had a revolution was because we didn't want to be under that central banking system, you know,
in England.
Right.
Yeah. And yeah, so we were independent of that. And Thomas Jefferson, he was one of those people who, you know, he fought against it, or he spoke against it.
Right.
If we submit to these banks, we're gonna our kids, our children's children are gonna be
in debt, basically
in debt, and not own anything in their own country.
Right.
And you see that happening now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's the worst in the black communities, you know, where people are just literally just working to pay bills, pay mortgages, pay rents, pay loans, pay debts. They don't own anything.
Right. And we just saw an article about that. I think it was in Philly.com.
Yeah.
Oh,
where it talked about how
we're living in the
Jordan sent us that. Yeah, Jordan sent us this. Jordan sent us this article from Philly.com where it says like it's basically trying to compare Philadelphia to South Africa during apartheid.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it has to do with the distribution of wealth.
Right.
But it doesn't make any sense.
So it's saying like because the majority in Philly as a city, it's majority like minorities.
Minority groups,
Right.
So like
60%.
Right. So white people don't make up the majority, but they hold the majority of the wealth and the majority of the positions in politics and the majority of like the ownership. So they're trying to compare that to apartheid in South Africa, where it's like, you know, the white people were a small minority, but they owned all of the wealth.
Right.
But it's totally different because, you know, that's not the law. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's just that's the way the wealth has worked its way out, because if for some reason...
Well, it has to do with manipulation of the law.
Right.
And reasoning of the law, but you can reason it back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you have the ability.
Right. I'm saying like you're not stuck in a system where that's impossible.
Right.
Because we were talking about
is a system that you can't get out of.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were talking about before that because they want to lump Asians into the minority category, but they don't want to talk about the Asians that don't fall, because the Asians hold their own set of wealth and they only make like 1% of the population in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? So they don't get included in the conversation because they don't fit that narrative.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not
What was the article trying to, just aside from making that point?
I don't know. Rachel could find it, or I'll send it to you because Jordan texted to us. He's always sending us.
It's saying
funny.
what today's narrative is. The country is racist.
Yeah, it's just basically saying that the country's racist and everyone's racist and Philadelphia's racist and bam, you know, that same old narrative. So we should wear burqas on Sports Illustrated.
Burkinis, they call them.
But the biggest point is that if you give your power over to the government, you'll have nothing.
Right.
And I think that's the bigger thing. You'll have nothing, and you see that.
Right.
You see the distribution of wealth because people aren't those people who have those businesses and they're not giving over their power.
Right.
You know, and granted, it has to do with policies from the Democrats that keep people in poverty. You know, not to say that Republicans do things all great because there's a lot of bad stuff on both sides.
Political policies that cause things to happen.
Right.
Plus, the war on crime is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the war on drugs, I should say.
Both.
Both, yeah.
Right. Because, I mean, Philadelphia is pretty high up there in terms of black on black crime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I don't even want to say just minority on minority crime because you got.
And that's and that's probably more likely to do where they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Demographics. Yeah.
But there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? And nobody's addressing that. Like, why are we killing each other?
Yeah.
You know why? It's a mentality. It's a poverty mentality. You become selfish. Why do you become selfish?
Because you have nothing.
You have nothing. You're trying to hold on to the little bit that you have. Oh, that's a scripture.
So this is the article here. Philly, we're officially living in an apartheid state. You know, very matter of fact. I mean, it's an opinion piece, of course.
Right.
But when the amount of equity, wealth, and resources are controlled by a city's racial minority, it's time to start asking why. Yeah. I mean, we should have been asking why.
Yeah.
But
asking why doesn't mean that
it's just because it's racist.
Yeah. Ask why to really want to find the truth.
Right.
Don't ask why to like put on your glasses.
Right.
You know, that you see it the way you see it.
Right. Or don't ask why to get to something that there's no solution to.
Right.
You know, like let's figure out ways to fix this. Let's figure out ways to start, you know, building up the black community so that they do, because the article talks about, I don't know if y'all read it. It talks about like how there's barely any black businesses, you know, but that's not just in Philly. You know what I mean? Like you see that everywhere.
Yep.
Like we know, we talk about it all the time. The Koreans own all the hair stores. You know what I mean? Like, but it's nothing but black people in there buying it. But they own all the food stores. They own the restaurants and everything. And it's like, why has it been so hard for the community to start businesses? You know what I mean?
Well, I think because we don't practice a form of group economics.
Right.
That's really what I see. I see we don't practice what they practice, which is they offer a product to the community and that community supports the entrepreneurs in the community.
Mm-hmm. But they don't do that. Koreans don't do that. They offer products to our community.
No, I mean, but what I'm saying is like
it's a $1 billion business
in a Chinatown that's sustained by its group. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just saying that they don't like. They look at. You know, they go into the black community.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they'll say
that's exclusively with the hair industry, because
Well, not only there's a bunch of Chinese restaurants. You know what I mean? Up and down the street.
Okay.
Selling chicken wings and fried rice all day long at General Tso with extra soy sauce.
What you're saying is true, but they actually look at other communities too and going, you know.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I see a bunch of Indians having Crown Fried Chicken spots. in Sicklerville.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Here too.
Yeah, here too. They own the ones here.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a thing, and that's what we're saying. It's
Pakistani though.
They are. Yeah.
They're Pakistani.
Yeah.
Get it right.
Used to be. At one time, it was India. But that's what we're saying. I think the point is like we need to start looking at ways where we can start making that capital and opening businesses, and a lot of that, you know, I've heard people put a lot of that blame on the churches too, because the churches don't.
You're right. I think it's two part. I think it's the illusion of politics and what it does, and then church and the idea that God will make it better.
Right.
You know, it's not economics. Is if you vote this way, everything will work out, and if you go to church, believe what the pastor said, everything is gonna work out.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And it ain't work out.
It ain't working out.
Yeah. But
there was once. I mean, you guys all know about Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
So there's evidence of it working.
That's what I'm saying. But one of the main problems was they figured out a way, which is another Democratic policy, to basically stamp out those small factions of people that were creating these communities by integrating and then just letting them become consumers,
right?
Instead of being entrepreneurs, and then setting up like social welfare programs to get everybody incentives to not open businesses, just get this government check, and that becomes another way to stop people's motivation from opening business, become entrepreneurs, and like
you just said it, motivation,
right?
Well, most young Americans really don't talk about entrepreneurship. They talk about going to get a career, college, and get a career.
Right.
But within the Black communities, it's more prevalent because of corporatized. A lot of Black people feel, well, maybe I'm not going to get a high-end job, so I'll just kind of use the system. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, like I'm not college material, so. But
especially with Black men.
Right. But we're never given the idea of like trade schools. We're never given the idea of like learning a craft that could then feed your family.
But it used to be like that. Those programs were most of the musicians we listened to came out of those school programs,
right?
Back in the day.
Yeah.
But something happened, right? And then group economics, where you're spending the money within your social group, your economic group, your racial group. Because I always look at this and I say, how are people from these third world type country come over? They will come over, and most of them don't speak English. It's not their native language, but they're able to buy stores. And people say, oh no, they get loans, or they get certain special treatment. Maybe they do. I don't know that for sure. But what they do have is they have a sense of community, and I don't think we have that.
Right.
Yeah, they help each other out. They already know the deal.
We see it in Voorhees.
Right.
Voorhees has changed drastically within the last, when I got there in 1996 to now. Voorhees has changed tremendously.
Yeah, it's
talking about like the Indian.
It's a little India. Like they have
grocery
stores. They're buying up schools. They have a big church there.
They're buying schools.
Yeah.
Wow.
Former elementary schools and former churches.
Yeah. There's like a little closed down elementary school on Eve Sham Road. They bought that, and I don't know what they're going to do with it, but probably turn it into a school.
Right.
But yeah, but then I look at someone like his mom, you know what I mean, or your parents.
Yeah.
They didn't really have they didn't have a community to fall back on.
No. Yep.
So what was the difference there?
Right. Well, I don't necessarily know if I have an answer for that, but I think what it is I realized that my parents weren't bound by social construct of what racism and all of these type of hurdles. They didn't know it. They just saw America as the land of opportunity.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
that's the key.
So what you're saying is they weren't already under the idea that I don't have a shot because it's racist.
They didn't see with those racist glasses on.
So then, so they're not already conditioned to give up. Then,
right?
To them, it's just I got to work hard.
And they didn't even know the social hurdles, if there were any. They didn't know that it even existed.
Right.
So they just ran without even thinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you get here and you see, but you don't have that mindset, so you just continue.
Right.
And
right. I knew that, it hit me in my late 20s. I was like, you know what? The only way to get out of systematic corporatized poverty, or whatever you want to call it, or oppression, is through economics. Now,
Right.
The only way to really do that is through entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Because you really can't control whether you're hired or fired from your desk.
Right.
You know what I mean? Companies can tell you, hey, keep working hard, and nothing's happening. The next day you get a letter.
Yeah.
You can't control that.
I mean, people found that out the hard way, because it was this whole idea of like work for 30 years, get a pension, retire. And then they started realizing that, you can get fired at any point.
Right.
And then you lose all of that work that you put in.
Yeah.
Right. Or you can retire, and then,
or the company goes out of business, or
But they're not going to tell you that. They want you to work hard.
But
Right.
people retire, right? And then they get their pay, but then they realize it's not enough because inflation has gone up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then they got to get another job.
Yeah. You got to get 2 jobs.
Yeah. And this is, it's all this stuff. What does it do? Oh, I'm going to retire. And it's all designed to get you in a mindset of just kind of going through life and not really thinking about anything.
Like being in the commune.
Burning it up.
Yeah.
A lot of the things we do today, though, it's like with all the education we have,
Yeah.
it seems like life is getting. We're not working towards anything being better. It's always getting worse.
Yeah.
We're not working. What's it? Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Can we
it's
talk
a great
about?
saying.
Can we talk about that? Like work smarter, not harder. But then remember that thing I sent you guys about the Common Core math problem?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was like it took her like 20 minutes to do
Yes.
simple multiplication.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Like that's the epitome of working harder, not smarter.
Not smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like they're teaching this to kids. We know because our kids are in those grades where they're
Right.
learning that, and it's like they're just being confused by this. Like it's way too many steps.
Right.
I don't know if you could find that. Right.
is.
It's probably way back in the.
I actually today I just went over Noe's math homework.
Oh, she found it right away. Let's
Oh.
check this out.
Here we go.
This is hilarious. We don't hear it, no.
Oh, great.
And it's like super choppy.
Plus 2, 1.
Here we go.
Okay, so that's step 1.
Step
The
one.
next step would be to draw a large box.
They're already done.
Person on the right is done. Start making coffee.
And on this box, we're going to put both of our expanded numbers.
But look,
On
if
the
this
top,
goes
we're gonna
on.
Put 30 plus 5. And on the side, I'm going to put 10 plus 2.
All right. So we don't have to watch this. How long
Look,
is
let's
this
see how
video?
long the video is.
Yeah,
I want to watch
Your
it.
plus signs are, I want you to draw lines through the middle.
Video is 2 minutes long. I'll
And
give you a
down.
couple more
2
seconds.
minutes
Yeah.
long. How long did it take? It took about
10
10
seconds.
seconds
Yeah.
for them to do that.
Right.
And that's our way of doing it.
The
Right.
very first number on the top.
And the problem with this is the kids got to show this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not like the kid could actually work it out and get it done.
Right.
The kid had to show this
Right.
Yeah.
steps.
Well, actually,
It's a little tricky
actually,
when we,
I know with Noah's teachers.
With Lisa's teachers, well, some of them, the one she has this year is really good, and she was the same way. She's like, listen, some of this stuff is crazy. Just let them try it a couple times, but just let them do it the way that they know how to do it best. Because it's like, it's too much.
It's
if you have
nonsensical.
2 minutes to do one math problem, right? So imagine you have 20 of those on a page.
Right.
Like, after 5, the child is like,
Right.
I'm over this.
And I'm forgetting how to get a really good photocopy machine so I can photocopy her in like a fake sport so she gets into college.
but yo,
Right?
isn't that the point though?
What?
It's the point to give up, to not want to do it. Like,
Right.
This is going to be frustrating, yeah.
You know, because you got to go through all that for 35 times 2.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's
Tanya Reed.
stupid.
Tanya Reed says, as a teacher, Common Core is such a drag.
Yeah, we agree. As parents that have to do homework, you know what I mean. So Tanya, what do you do with your students when you when you have to do Common Core? What do you do? Like, what's your approach with the students? Because I know, like, my daughter gets super frustrated with. She hates math now. You know what I mean? And she was fine with math at first when they were learning it the regular way.
But she wants to get it.
She wants to get it.
But it's frustrating.
When it becomes just super tedious, anyone hates super tedious stuff. You don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
Like economics.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's literally the epitome of busy work.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So like the amount of work is very long for the payoff at the end,
Right.
which is not really fair, especially when mathematics is already hard. I just had an epiphany about mathematics the other day, and like hanging with Carter and everything, I was like, math is so hard and there's so much and so many levels, but like it's super important. You need to have a good foundation. So I'm gonna go back and like get my math skills up a little bit.
Right.
But if you do it that way, like how are you ever supposed to take heart that you're gonna find the answer
Right.
ever?
And
Ever.
it's the same thing with economics. Like economics is important, but when you, dude, they have all banks have come up with so many equations,
Right.
and theoretical.
Codes. The tax code is so ridiculous.
And they do that on purpose.
And when you wrap everything up in jargon language, like you were saying, then you really check out before you even start.
Right. Yeah, like that little bit of economic talk we had in the beginning. Everyone checked out of it.
Time to make some coffee.
Yeah. But when we start talking about the conspiracy behind it,
right.
What? All right.
Yeah.
But everything is designed like that though. Like I remember when my former career when I would, catch shoplifters, and I remember reading the subpoenas.
Yeah.
And it was in like lawyer jargon, and there's no reason for this kind of talk. Like the wording is just who talks like this?
It's designed that
like
way
Dyson.
Because think about it. If you can, and they try to say that legalese is set up that way to be ultra specific because laws are ultra complex. You know what I mean? And there's so many angles to laws but. To me, I just look at it as they make it so complicated so that you need to hire a lawyer.
You have to hire a lawyer, or you plead guilty.
Right, or else
I give up.
Yeah, because lawyers literally all they do is tell you the best way to avoid laws.
It's like a language. They know how to speak.
Lawyers know how to speak it. They know how to reason.
Yeah,
right. So you need them.
Yeah. They know how to reason. That's the point.
We have overcomplicated very basic things.
So Tanya answered us.
What'd she say?
With my kids, I apply more of hands-on approach where students physically can be able to understand using mnemonics is a key as well. Little jingles and raps.
Raps. You writing rap songs in the is this like trap style rap? Or are you doing like Biggie rap? Like what type of rap are we talking about? Uzi Vert, Drake? What are we talking about? I would love to hear some of these little mathematic raps that you got. Yeah, I mean you need something for these kids because all you're gonna do is discourage them from wanting to learn this stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm teaching Noe those little tricks that we used to do, like when you divide, you take the big number, put it in the house, divide it with the little number. He's like, this is so easy, Daddy.
Yo, how about this? Like, you could just show that, like, math can all be done on your phone.
Yep.
Like, there's really, like, it's not really that big of a deal. Like, we have technology now that makes it so you don't need to do that.
Right.
Yeah, but you gotta learn, dude. Because I know kids that don't do on the register. They can't do anything, and if it comes up wrong, they're like, they can't figure it out. So I'm like, you owe me 45 cents.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Liz tells me about that too. Liz tells me about like people that work for her that, the young 18, 19-year-olds. That's like if someone gives them like say it's like, the 9.35 and the person gives them a 10 and 35 cents.
Oh my
They'd be
goodness.
like, what do I do with this?
That makes it easier.
What do I do?
Yeah. Dude, it's like I'm done.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, but I clearly this isn't working then.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's
speak for itself.
That's the argument for it. That's the argument for Common Core math.
But that's the point.
It's supposed to help you break down the numbers so you can do math in your head.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
That is the point, though. Where are these? I want to go back and find out where Common Core came from, because I guarantee you, it's going to open up a can of worms.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that's the thing. We got to look at where these policies come from, where these things come from, and you'll usually find the truth. You know what I mean?
George Soros.
The real life emperor.
Emperor Palpatine.
He is emperor.
He is, man.
He's Palpatine.
Dude, trying to school Kyle on George Soros. He wasn't trying to hear it.
Nah, wasn't trying to hear it.
What's the reason? What's the reason for it?
Yeah. George Soros is definitely involved in Common Core in some way. I guarantee you.
Probably.
He owns like.
Rachel's over there trying to figure.
I remember.
She's looking it up.
Yo, people have made lists. Like I looked up one time how many companies he owns or funds, and it's hundreds. People have made lists, and it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's a rich dude, rich, powerful dude.
Definitely is.
So. You want to get into the Federal Reserve thing?
Yeah, let's talk about the Fed.
Okay, so Federal Reserve. So anybody know what the Federal? Let's have this conversation. You know what the Federal Reserve is, Mo?
They have a bunch of money that they fund the banks with.
Right.
They technically have no money. And they're technically not even federal. They're private.
Yeah, like
just like the IRS.
Right. The Federal Reserve.
They're in tangent, the IRS and the Federal Reserve.
They say the Federal Reserve is as Federal Express. You know what I mean? Like it's literally just the name they gave it. It's a private bank.
Right.
You know.
Right. So, do we have that clip with Trump? Do you want to put? So, all right, we started this off with 2019 first quarter. We've had a really good year, and it has to do. It has nothing to do with Obama,
right?
Okay, because we were, it's because Obama. You know, it's what he did.
There are some things that crossed over, like the unemployment rate was going down.
Yeah,
and
there's stuff what I'm saying is that what's happening now is literally because of what Trump has been doing.
The tariffs, the trade stuff. Because the article that I posted, wants to give credit to the trade agreements is a lot of the reason why the GDP is so high. Mm-hmm. But they want to say that you can't count that, though. I don't know if you noticed that, if you read that article.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No, but it's true. So the great tariff debate of 1888, and then we had so much money. We could do whatever we wanted. We built forces up that were incredible. Then in 1913, they ended tariffs, okay? They ended tariffs. Somebody got stupid, and they ended tariffs. They said, it's okay for other nations to come in. I won't use a certain word because it's not politically, but everybody knows the word I love to use. Should I use it?
So he says something, and it kind of like, most people won't even know what he's talking about.
Right.
Because they don't know what tariffs are, first of all.
Right.
A lot of people don't. And
they have no idea about the history
what
of
happened
the Federal
in 1913.
Reserve in 1913. Yeah.
Right. So if we go back to 1913, there was something that went in place. I don't know if you can pull it up. It's called the Revenue Act of 1913. So this is the whole tariff thing. This happened with Woodrow Wilson. He was a member of the Democratic Party.
Also a racist.
Yeah, we can get into that.
Also a KKK member.
Yeah, we can get into all that.
Yeah.
But what they did was, I'll just read this little part. Wilson and other members of the Democratic Party had long seen high tariffs as equivalent to unfair taxes on consumers, and tariffs reduction was President Wilson's first priority upon taking office. So he actually did that to bring about the tax revenue service and also the federal bank or the Fed. Right. So
you mean the IRS, though,
the IRS,
tax
right? The IRS or the Fed,
right?
And so when Trump's talking about that, he's saying the problem lies in 1913,
right?
Because this is when everything started to change, and he says it real quick, but he was like, we had so much wealth, that was the boom, the economic boom of the what was it, the what was it called?
I don't know.
The industry boom.
Oh, the Industrial Revolution.
Industrial Revolution.
Right.
Thank you. I couldn't think of it.
Which had a lot to do with
factories and stuff.
With you know that Lincoln had a lot to do with that too, and where he didn't want to be under the World Bank that was, infiltrating all of the other countries. They have been trying to infiltrate the U.S. since it became a country. Like that goes even further back than the 1913. Is that the World Bank has been trying to set up a centralized banking system in the U.S. all that time, and
because of the wealth.
And the founding fathers and all those presidents before were fighting against that a lot. I mean, Andrew Jackson said that the best thing he ever did was kill the banks. You know, as a part of before he died, that was the last thing he said.
That cartoon you sent explained it.
It was amazing, right? Yeah, and Lincoln was. You've heard of greenbacks, right? That was the currency that he implemented that was supposed to be backed by gold. That would be something that wouldn't be just what is it called, fiat currency? You know, when it's not backed by any monetary system, it's just notes that they pass out, which is what our money is now. You know,
fiat currency.
So Lincoln was the one that fought against that too, to make sure that the Industrial Revolution happened.
Right,
and then we were in that when Woodrow Wilson got brought into power, but it was because of that meeting on Jekyll Island.
Right. So going back to that, like you look at Lincoln, he was kind of like the catalyst to this whole Industrial Revolution move that then boomed in the late 1800s.
Right.
And what was I gonna say? So then you had two things that happened: slavery, Civil War, and then a whole economic boom that happened after that, which is kind of crazy because when you think about it, like you set the slaves free and they thought it was going to do something opposite, but it actually created a boom in America.
Right.
You know what I mean? You think you're going to set all these slaves free, but slaves actually was taxing.
Yeah.
That they didn't even realize that. Like it actually costs money to have these slaves.
Right.
Then to let them go.
Right.
You know.
Because when they borrowing to buy?
A lot of them were borrowing to get loans to be able to afford the slaves that they were buying, and then to be able to house them and feed them and everything.
Yeah.
Well, I seen some stats a while ago when I was in my little rabbit hole. The North economically was thriving more than the South was.
Right.
You know,
were they indebted to the North? They were borrowing from banks from the North.
Yeah, but also a lot of it had to do with like slave plantations weren't everywhere like people think. Like there was a few.
It was only a few.
It was only like 4% of the South owned slaves. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like just slaves everywhere. Everyone owned slaves and everyone. You know what I mean? There was only a couple huge.
There was a lot of poor people.
Yeah, there was a lot of poor people in the South too, and so they didn't have this huge booming economy. Some of them were. There was a few rich people getting rich off of these slaves that were doing the work, but then the cotton, when the cotton gin got invented after that, it was going to eliminate that anyway. It's like the same thing we're looking at now with like technology and automation starting to play a factor in jobs, and we got to figure out ways to make sure our economy is straight because we're so dependent on things, which is what the slavery thing was it could have totally crashed this country because they were so dependent on that in the South, that once that became not a thing, then what do you do?
Right.
You know what I mean?
It was at this time they came up with the idea for the Federal Reserve.
It was in 1913.
Well, it was in the early 1900s where, going back to what you were saying, Jamie, so a bunch of companies got together in Jekyll Island. So it was Senator Nelson Aldrich. And so this is from the actual, what you're saying right now is from the actual Federal Reserve .org, I think it is. So they're telling you about the history. It's not like it's a secret because a lot of this stuff has come out. So they're like, we might as well just make it known.
Yeah.
So
and Jekyll Island is this little island off the coast of Georgia. Right.
And it was basically it was a place where the rich hoity-toity would get together,
right?
And fish, whatever.
Have their little ceremonies and their little Bohemian Grove parties.
Yeah. I mean, you guys heard of the Rothschilds.
Yeah.
And, so one of the big people was there was a board member, Benjamin Strong from J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan was really, really big back then.
He was funding Tesla,
right?
Who invented the AC current that we use to this day, and all of the modern motor systems that still operate.
Then you had Charles Norton, and he was president of Morgan-dominated First National Bank of New York. So that's another Morgan setup right there. You had Henry Davison, senior partner of J.P. Morgan.
Right.
you had Frank Vanderlip, and he was the president of National City Bank of New York. So there was a lot of New York going on in this
Rockefeller.
Yeah, Rockefeller.
Who owned Standard Oil at that time, which basically monopolized the entire oil industry in America.
So they were all part of this, this cabal, I guess you could say. It was a secret at the time, and they created this. They were trying to figure out how can we
get a centralized banking system.
How can we get control? Because this is something that it's a literal quote from.
What does that say right there, Rach?
Glass and Owen both introduced proposals to form a central banking system based on draft legislation supported by Wilson. Basically, exactly what you said.
Right. Okay.
So this is and yeah, that happened later on, but this is a quote from Mayer Rothschild of the Rothschild banking empire, and it says, "Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws."
And you know what's funny is we were talking about George Soros, and remember I put that clip in from the 60 Minutes interview where he said, like, I'm about making money. I don't care what happens socially after that. You know what I mean? It's the same mentality.
It's a design.
And we were trying to explain that to Kyle about like how you'll fund two sides of an argument to get the outcome of the riches either way, which is what the Rothschilds have done for centuries. They funded France and England,
Israel and the Middle East, all the surrounding.
They'll fund Iran and they'll fund Palestine and fund Israel. You know, because they just want to keep the tension there because they get rich off of it,
because they can control it, and that's the key. It's about control. It's about controlling us. Control. What are we? We're consumers, but we're technically slaves, if we allow them, because they did away with slavery, but now there's a new slavery, you know, slavery that's gone, but this new slavery is here. So that was the Federal Reserve, was to get a control over this country, they got that passed because in 1907 there was this huge hit. How was that orchestrated? And then,
but the huge hit happened because of the tariff lifting that Woodrow Wilson did before that, and he was in cahoots with them. Well, no,
that was different. That happened later on.
No, he wasn't involved with that.
Yeah, he was 100% involved in all that. But I mean, that was later on. I'm saying the 1907 thing that happened. I'm not going to get into all that, but that was a catalyst for this whole they orchestrated that to set up. It was kind of like a little mini recession thing, so that they could set up. We need a central banking system so this doesn't happen again. You know what I'm saying? So,
which is what they always do. They create some huge like traumatic experience for everyone so that they can pass a legislation as a way to not let it ever happen again.
Because people are scared, and they don't want stuff to happen, so that's how they're going to control you. You know,
which is why we get so nervous when we see them pushing these agendas. Every time something happens, it's like, oh, we got to take people's guns away now. It's like, but they're using the same tactic. You know what I mean? Or it's like, you know, oh, they got weapons of mass destruction over there. We got to go into Iraq. You know, but
this has been happening forever. And then we can go to the Great Depression right after that. You know, the Great Depression, and then what happened? I was going to say Green New Deal. Not the Green New Deal. What was it called? The Roosevelt's deal. What was it?
Brand New Deal, right?
No.
Wasn't it?
No. Okay, I can't think of it right now. But most of y'all will know what we're talking about. So these things were put in place.
Oh, Stan said to mention, so I do want to mention this.
Just the New Deal? The New Deal?
The New Deal.
Just the New Deal?
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
AOC, just messing everybody up in 2019.
Just the New Deal.
So Stan said, don't forget that people knew what central banks meant at the time. Now we don't care enough to see, so they had to hide that fact. The original bill was because the Eldridge bill, he's a senator and a banker, rename it as Federal Reserve Bill. That's the way he wrote it. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Well,
but I know what he's saying. Like back then, people knew what the central banks were doing to a lot of these countries, so they were on board. Like people were against the central bank in America for the longest time, and it took they had to create some crazy coup to happen or some crazy economic thing to happen, so that people would then let their guard down and say, okay, we need to do something.
Yeah, you know? But it was. They took themselves out of it and made it look like it was coming from somewhere else.
Right.
And that's hence the Federal Reserve Bank.
Right.
And act like it was backed by gold.
And they wanted it to seem like the government was taking control of this so the people had the authority over it.
Right.
But it's really just a private owned bank. So then Roosevelt's New Deal was when they had everyone turn in their gold.
Yeah. And that's when you had the Great Depression. So they created jobs off the back of the Federal Reserve, basically. Right. We're going to create all these jobs to boost the economy.
Yeah.
So you see, and what did they do? They started to just create money. That's actually when they changed the dollar.
Right.
When they added the pyramid on the dollar.
Right. All the dollar that we know of today with the pyramid and all the symbols that everyone always points out, Illuminati and craziness, like that happened under Roosevelt. And the idea was, turn in your gold to us so that we can give you these notes that will be your monetary system, which was that was going on, right? That's been going on, but it was a way to get everyone to do. It was almost like they made it mandatory then, though, right? Like you had to turn in your gold.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm
pretty sure they did. Like you had to turn in your gold to get the U.S. dollar instead.
Yeah, and I do know that. That John F. Kennedy wanted to dismantle it,
right,
and back it
again. Lincoln tried to stop it, and what happened to him? JFK tried to stop it. Look what happened to him. Which is crazy.
Yeah, and I think Trump is trying to do something, and
the fact that he mentioned 1913, like. He's trying to show that he's knowledgeable of this, and he didn't really want to say it.
He said it on multiple occasions too,
right?
And he'll say it quick, and just let it pass by,
right? Because I think people need to be aware of these things that were put in place because we don't understand how our money works. We don't understand what the value is,
and that's another thing with the Federal Reserve. So when a bank gets money from the United States, when Congress, when they don't have any money left in Treasury, they go to the Federal Reserve
to print money.
And the Federal Reserve prints what do you need?
Yeah,
need two.
But it's not
billion.
It's not backed by any gold anymore, right?
But then the moment that they give them that money, they hit us with interest,
right?
They hit the country with interest.
So we're paying to get to them fund. We're paying on the interest to fund the government with the money that they need
to fund the Federal Reserve.
Right.
Well, fund the government, but also fund the Federal Reserve.
Right.
And we don't know anything about what's going on behind the scenes. That's why.
And we just look at it like inflation, like it's just normal. Like, the price of everything just goes up after a while.
And that's the kicker, because the inflation is where they get you.
Right.
Because they can take a booming economy and destroy it with inflation.
It's crazy. So Woodrow Wilson, let's talk about him. See if you can pull his. Well, because a lot of people don't know that he's the one that passed this bill about the Federal Reserve. And Woodrow Wilson...
And also IRS.
The IRS. Because a lot of people don't know that the IRS didn't exist before that.
No, it did not. Yep.
I didn't.
Yeah, like the whole tax system, the way we pay taxes now, the way they collect, they can put liens on your property. None of that existed.
They did that because of the tariffs.
Right.
They wanted to go away from the tariff system and then tax the people.
Right. So Woodrow Wilson, who was a Democrat, was also a KKK, super racist. Like, he showed Birth of a Nation in the White House. He did a screening of it. And if people don't know what Birth of a Nation is, like, it's one of the most racist movies where it tries to show like the KKK as the heroes of the South. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah. And he screened this movie in the White House as the president. You know, this is the Vox article where they go through like the history of how racist Woodrow Wilson is, which is hilarious because, you know, Vox is totally left leaning, but they even acknowledge how, you know, he was, and there, so many presidents were completely racist, especially a lot of Democrats. People don't realize that. So what else do you want to get into about you want to continue down that road with the Federal Reserve? We're going to wrap up in like 10 minutes, guys.
I mean, I said everything. We can talk about it, but it's like, I don't know how much people want to get into it because it's
the Jekyll Island thing.
Sounds so creepy.
Talked about that.
Jekyll Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about Jekyll Island. I mean, there's more to it. It's just like, it goes so deep. I would just say, you know, research
do some
it for
research.
yourself.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing that like this whole episode has kind of brought to light, especially as you guys were talking about how people don't like, we're not taught about entrepreneurship. We're not taught about how to be your own boss and
Right.
how to start your own business and how to make a real livelihood for yourself and your family that can grow over time and be bigger and better as the years go on. And a lot of that has to do with not understanding money.
Right.
How can you start a business or anything or build your community if you don't understand the fundamental principles in place for how you're supposed to get money, spend money, reinvest money, et cetera, et cetera?
How banks work, how debt works.
Right.
Like how do banks make, people don't even know, like, what are banks, how do they exist? What's the purpose of a bank? The purpose of the bank is to hold the money so that they can then lend money out to other people and charge interest and then make money back off of that. But then they keep your money safe at the same time.
Right.
But the problem is that a lot of these banks, the people don't know that the banks are allowed to lend up to, was it like 10% above what they even have in storage. Like, they can lend more than what they have. So I don't know how is that even a thing?
Because they just go to the Federal Reserve
and just to say, oh, we need more money, and then they print more money.
Yep.
And that money is all.
But that's why it's like what happened in 2008. They're too big to fail.
Right.
So let's just print more money and cover that up.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Bail them out of the mess that they made with the housing market.
Right.
Right.
That was all bank. That was, you know, bank design.
Right.
Everything that happened, it wasn't. But I'm not going to say people can't be held responsible because you sign that mortgage, you know. So just to be more aware of what's going on in your life, to be more aware of the decisions we're making. Because even like in terms of where your food comes from, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
Like, we get so caught up in our own dimensional thinking of like we're so removed from all that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I know you know more about it because you grew up a little differently than we did. Yeah. But we can be so removed from that because we accept it. Right. You know, we accept it.
But that's why I think it's good for people to experience that. Like for me, that was one of the main reasons why when I went, like I wanted to see that. I wanted to like experience something that was outside of my comfort zone.
Right. Because
it's like you gain so much more perspective and appreciation for the life that you have, and like just the things that we take for granted every day. You gain so much more appreciation for those things when you can experience like the way other people live every day that you would think is like, yo, I could never do that. You know what I mean? But then you put yourself in that position. It's like you start to see there's beauty in that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not like this concept. We have this idea here that it's all about how many things I have. Like people don't realize that even people that are considered in poverty in America are still in the top 1% globally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is a crazy concept.
Right. So when you want to talk about the top 1%, look at yourself.
Right. Exactly.
In terms of the globe.
Because it's all about perspective, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to kind of touch on what Rich was saying, we're not taught this, but it's through schooling, but it's through religion, church too.
Yeah.
Because we're taught about tithing.
Right. They make sure they get that 10%, right? They know how to put that number together.
They're not talking about entrepreneurship.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They're not teaching you about the banks. They're not teaching you about the IRS.
So you can, and to be honest with you, a lot of people don't know. I'm not as educated on the subject as I should be, so you feel kind of like left out of the conversation. But that's where you have to take that time to kind of really learn how this works.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's annoying.
It is.
There's other things to do.
Right. You got to watch Housewives and Avengers Part 18.
No, but
so you can't.
It's Common Core math.
Right.
Who wants to learn Common Core math?
But it's not. It's interesting.
Well,
like for me, it's like to find out. Economics is not interesting, but I'm saying to learn the foundations of like all of the things that we use every day.
Yeah.
And then to realize like I never knew shit about this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and it could all be so simple.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And what you told me too, you told me that your mom is extremely good with money, but she never
one of the best I've ever met.
But she never sat down and taught you. She just assumed you guys were gonna get it.
My mom's credit score is like 819, something like that.
Right.
But she never ever sat down and taught us like how did she do that?
And why is that though? Because I think people assume that you're gonna pick that up along the way.
Yeah.
You're gonna get that through school.
We learned the hard way.
Yeah, we learned the hard way, man. Right. My mom has always been amazing at saving money. Like, you know, I mean, when we were kids, she was making $5 an hour and feeding both of us, paying a mortgage and everything. Right, you know what I mean? So
that's incredible. Same thing with my mom. I remember my mom, you know, 90s making money, and she went in, she had like 15 grand. Saying,
how did you do that? Right? Yeah, it's incredible, but we don't like your mom didn't sit down with you either.
Nope.
And I just want to say, like, there's something to that poverty mentality,
right?
Because it's a mentality. You know what I mean? And if you're thinking, like, it's funny, you don't have money, I want to hold on to it. Because even in terms of church, there's something to giving your money.
Right.
Like, that's a thing.
Right.
And if you release it, you can get back. Because it's not all bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's a literal, like, if you give, right, you're giving. You're not hoarding.
Right.
You're not holding on to it. If you don't give, you're going to lose it. You know what I mean? And there's many ways you can give. There's many ways, but you're literally giving of yourself. You know what I mean? So that's a way to gain. But when you're in poverty, you never want to give. You just want to hold on to it. But you never gain anything. To the point where you won't give to a business or your own business. Yeah. To the point where you hoard everything because you feel like somebody's going to take it from you.
Fear, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you become so selfish that you're looking at everybody like they're the enemy.
Right.
And that's like the straight up mentality of poverty that keeps us looking at everybody around us. Doesn't matter because it's not about black, white. Anybody can be the enemy.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you look at them and you're in that poverty mentality, you're always trying to hold on to what you think is yours. And that keeps people separate. So there is something to giving, you know?
Definitely.
Just want to make that clear.
No, that's cool. So before we end this whole thing, I gotta say what's up too. We got a couple cousins watching, Lisa and Freddie. Freddie is a cop. He was a Camden cop for years, and he's a really cool dude. And my daughter's watching, of course. I hope you did your homework. It's late. Carter's watching. What's up, Carter? So before we end this, and this is a perfect time for Carter to be watching, I want to talk about the fact that China is putting human DNA in monkey brains right now. And end this on a lighter note. Because this is insane.
Planet of the Apes?
They're like literally, have they not watched Planet of the Apes?
Yeah.
No.
Or any movie that some disease is going to happen.
Right. Outbreak, any of these. What was the article? Yeah, here we go. Chinese scientists insert human brain genes into monkeys. Yeah. And I don't know what the purpose of this is. I guess they're trying to see if they can get them to have human behavior.
So I think they're looking into trying to find. Okay, so the study says that the monkeys have potential to provide important and potentially unique insights into basic questions of what actually makes humans unique, as well as into disorders and clinically relevant phenotypes such as neurodegenerative and social behavior disorders that are difficult to study by any other means.
Sounds like the beginning of a horror movie.
Yeah.
Well, I think the idea, as always, presented with animal experimentation is that we're going to further humans and we're going to figure out things about diseases and it's going to be good and all of this is going to be good. But yeah,
the thing that worries me,
the article goes on to say that there's other folks who have participated in this and that it is absolutely a slippery slope.
Yeah, and the fact that it's in China and we really there's no way that we can really know what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea. And I did see another article where they were using CRISPR to splice. They cloned some monkeys and then they spliced, turning into a mess, basically. You know what I mean?
What's CRISPR?
You don't know what CRISPR is?
No, what is it?
CRISPR is the gene editing system that they invented, that they can literally they can make designer humans. They can change your eye color. They can, see if you can find what the CRISPR thing.
I think it was for babies, right?
It can be for any human, any human. Yeah, like
DNA.
you can alter their genes.
I remember seeing the one about kids where you can design.
Yeah, like if you're having a baby, you can change certain genetic things about them, but they haven't started testing it on humans yet. But see if Rachel can find what the CRISPR thing. But it's just like, yo, come on, man, Planet of the Apes.
So, for instance, can you hear me? Yes. The first human trials in the U.S. for CRISPR gene editing are officially underway.
Oh, snap.
Right in Philadelphia. Here we go, Philly.
When is this from? So actually, April 2019. So this is...
Wow.
recent.
So they are doing it on humans now.
University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia spokesman has confirmed to NPR that 2 cancer patients, one with myeloma and with sarcoma, have received CRISPR treatments after standard treatment didn't hold. The trial removes, modifies, and reinserts immune cells in hopes they'll destroy cancerous cells. And though I guess that's also related to the other gene editing they're doing.
Okay, so that's what they're using this instance of CRISPR to do, is to try to fight the cancerous cells. But you can use it, they've literally learned how to go in and physical features.
Right.
They're what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a way to get humans to live forever.
Right.
That's what they're trying. That's the ultimate goal.
Trying.
And it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Trying to play God.
Trying to play God. And that's the thing. I guess we can wrap this all up with, you can't trust man. You know what I mean? You can't put your trust in man. You can't put your money in man.
Right.
You got to trust in God. Mm-hmm. And when you
how we always wrap it up, I feel.
Yeah. When you give it, when you give up your ability, your power to somebody else, it's your fault. You know what I mean?
Like in Venezuela right now.
Yeah. It's your fault.
We talked about it before, the fact that Venezuela had really strict gun laws. None of the public has guns. It allows for things like this. They're all defenseless now, and the military can just run havoc over everybody, which is something that people are worried about in this country. That's why the Second Amendment was put in place for a reason, and it's important. It's important for people to understand that it's not just about everyone wants to make it about people just want to have guns, and it's not. It's really about keeping, because governments can get out of control. They can grow too big. You look at it now, they're trying to keep constantly pushing the boundaries of how big our government is going to be and how much control we hand over to them. And the more and more we give them, the more they could become a tyrant over us. And the Second Amendment is one of the main things that keeps that in check. You know.
Yes.
So on that note, thank you guys for watching. We want to say what's up to everybody that's been in the chat this whole time. We appreciate you guys, and sorry we got started a little late tonight. We had some technical difficulties, but you catch us back next week on Tuesday night, 8 o'clock. I'm going to try to start on time. I want to thank my bro-in-law James Garcia, Mr. Build Right. Make sure you check out his page too. On Facebook, you can just look him up, Mr. Build Right, or look up James Garcia. You can see all of the amazing work that he does. Because
can I get a discount?
We were talking about craftsmanship. We were talking about people that don't understand going into the trades, and this is someone who has done it and is an entrepreneur. Started his own company along with his father, and they do amazing work. So people need to support that. People need to support Black-owned businesses, and not just talk about it. Actually do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. And stop haggling. You know what I mean? Stop haggling.
I'll give you
Pay the
great
man
work.
what he's worth. Again, thank my brothers Jake, Simone, and thank my little sister Rachel for all of her hard work that she's been doing. And stay tuned for her new music that's coming out soon. We've been working on that diligently. She's got an EP that we're working on with some great stuff. And yeah, keep supporting, keep watching us. Oh yeah, May 6th, Gold is coming out. Our new record Gold will be out on May 6th. Make sure you support that. You can check it out on Spotify, Amazon, Apple Music, all of that fun stuff. And go to the Patreon, patreon.com/Young Lion TV, and you can sign up to become a Young Lion, or you can just donate if you want to support the cause, support the podcast, support some people trying to speak truth and wake people up to the programming that we all seem to fall under when we just live life and just go with the flow and just accept what everyone is telling us at all times. It's important, people. We need young lions out there. That's the purpose of this podcast. We're looking for young lions. We're trying to awaken the lion that's inside of all of us, because you could be a lion or you could be a sheep, and there's too many sheep out there right now being led to the slaughter. So make sure you guys support and become young lions. And we'll see you guys next week, or we'll see you at a show if you want to come see us live. You're watching Young Lion TV.
Young lion, go live, yeah. Young lion, you rich, yeah. This kingdom has room, yeah.